I'm afraid my son might think he's a girl. What else? Well, I'm afraid that he might be gay, or I'm afraid that we've caused him to be gay, or that he's going to want to be a girl. And he's like, wow, okay. And he goes, what if all that's true? I take a deep breath and I'm like, man, that'd be really, really hard. That'd be really, really hard. He goes, yeah, I'm sure. He goes, would you still love him? I was like, absolutely. Absolutely, I'd still love him. He goes, well, don't you think it'd be important for you to show him that now more than ever?
All right, what's happening, my friends? Welcome to this episode of Carseats and Coffee. I have Jeremy Neves in the house. What's up, my man? Thank you for coming out.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me in your home, and yeah, it's exciting.
Absolutely. So Jeremy, for the few people that are listening, most of the audience, they know, I know you're friends with a lot of guys that have been on it. So give a few of the listeners that don't know who you are a little backstory.
Yeah, I'm a Utah boy, grew up here, born and raised, went to school here, lived here my entire life. Come from a family of five kids. I'm the second oldest. And I grew up, went to high school, didn't do any college, went and served a mission for the church, and came home after 2 years and jumped right into business. And I started working for a door-to-door company selling internet, phone, and TV products from 2008 to 2009. In 2009, I left that company and started my own company. At the same time, I also started, going to college and everything else. And 3 semesters into college, I decided, I'll take 1 semester off and I'll focus on the business, and then I'll come back and crank school out, and I never went back to school. That was kind of I think a lot of people do that, like, I'm going to focus on it, I'm going to come back, and yeah, no, I didn't learn that way. I learned much better just by trial and error and boots on the ground. So started a business doing the same thing I was doing, selling internet, phone, and TV products. Door-to-door company. We had a ton of different big brands in the TV space: Dish Network, DirecTV, AT&T. And built door-to-door sales teams, and we built that from 2009 to 2019, and exited in 2019 in January, and now I'm currently just doing some consulting and some coaching, building personal brand, and really just trying to get my voice out there, document the things that I've learned, and in hopes that I can share from my learnings and my mistakes and impact other people along the way. That's kind of where I'm at.
Dude, that is so awesome. I mean, that's a lot.
It's kind of a mouthful all at once, but yeah.
I love he downplays. Hey, that's it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, because we're going to jump into Jeremy as a father here in a moment.
Yeah.
But I want to know, like, beforehand, were you building a lot of this up before you started having your family then?
Absolutely, yeah. So this was before I was married. I started the business in 2009, and then got married in 2012. And then our first son was born in 2015. So yeah, only probably been in business for 6 years, all before having our kid. And we have one son right now. He's 4.5 years old, and yeah, that's kind of how we got started.
So before you had your kid, like, was your ambition just like so career focused?
Yeah. So, super career focused. Obviously, I always knew I wanted to have kids and was excited to have kids. When we had made the decision to do that, but yeah, I was very focused on just that, just achieve.
And how, after you've had your son, then has that changed at all?
Absolutely, a ton. Ever since my son came around, and like much more purpose, much more meaning, much more groundedness. Definitely opening me more up to like what mattered most instead of just achievement.
Dude, can we hit on that a little bit?
Yeah, let's go.
What do you feel matters most now?
Yeah, so honestly, for me, with my son, and we'll dive into this even more, is like, I just want to make sure that he knows that I'm there for him, that he knows that I care about him, that I accept him, that I love him. Really, it's the old cliche, like, love is all that matters, but truly, like, that to me is what matters most, making sure that I'm there for him. I'm never going to worry about, I've never been worried, nor do I feel like I'll ever be worried about whether I can provide, but it's more about, like, can I provide those things that aren't just money, right? And make sure that I'm that type of dad.
Isn't it interesting too? Because as men, I feel like providing is like part of that role, right? Mm-hmm. But not too many people talk about what you just said, providing on a different level. Mm-hmm. Money's only one aspect, and those other ones I think are a little harder to control, if you will, because some of it's outside of your control.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, and it really what it does is it causes you to focus on you. And I feel like parenting is like a mirror show, right?
Right.
Your child is basically just holding up a mirror to show you like the areas as a, personal development is probably the most expensive and hardest personal development course you'll ever take in life is being a parent, right? Because they're that mirror that just shows you like, here's all the areas where you need to be better and where you can improve and where you can grow. And so, yeah, I mean, I want to be able to provide, the right mindset, the right beliefs, the right emotional strength for my son and teach him those ways. I want to be able to provide spiritually, like purpose, meaning, why we're here. I want to be able to help with those different aspects. So, yeah, there's a lot more than just monetarily providing for a kid.
Absolutely, man. And you nailed it right there. You said one of the most probably expensive, like self-development courses you'll ever take.
Absolutely.
Isn't it interesting that as fathers, we're in that, we understand that, but yet a lot of fathers won't actually take some of their extra money to have self-development courses?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird concept, dude. When you said that, I was like, holy crap, man. Like, how many dads won't take the time to try to better themselves when the situation they're in demands that of them?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Man. What do you think is, just because we're on this right now, and I love this, what do you think some of those skills, those personal development skills that you feel are beneficial for dads to have?
Yeah. First and foremost, it's going to sound interesting because I feel like a lot of people, they think that they've got it figured out, at least to a certain level. It's about being good enough. We're grown men and everything else, and it's like, no, like, I mean, I know in junior high, kids would make fun of you, and it's like, that would affect you, but now you're like, oh, no, that doesn't bother me as much, like, I know I'm good enough, right? I want to be better, but I'm good enough. But what I've found for myself, and as I've been in leadership roles and associating with other people, is that so many people, they haven't got there where they feel like they're good enough. That, there's a lack mentality. There's this belief that like, I'm not good enough. I haven't met these standards, and I think that's the first principle that I feel you got to get. You got to get to this like, I'm not broken, that I am whole, that I am good enough, that I'm not missing out. It's okay to desire more, but from a place of I'm good enough. Like, I'm good with myself. Like, I know who I am. And I've accepted that. I've got faults and all, but I'm, I am good enough. And I think that's, children kind of, how are you going to teach your son or your daughter, hey, you're good enough? Like, when kids are making fun of them or when they're struggling with beliefs or doubts or, whatever about themselves, how are you going to teach them about that when you're not living it yourself?
Man, so true. There's so much behind that too, because we don't. We tend to believe that just the words we say are enough. Oh man, but if I told my kid every day, you can have whatever you want if you go after it, but yet my actions don't match that.
Yeah. See, here's the thing about kids, and that I've seen so far is that, they're smart and they understand. So like, we know that logically, like verbally, we can share a message, we can paint a picture, we can control the situation, right? Because we've got more years on them, right? And we think that we can tell them those things. And sometimes they comprehend it, depending on their age, they comprehend it. Other times they don't comprehend it, but what they always comprehend is the energy and the actions. Like, they can tell energetically, like, we as humans, like, we sense it. You can tell when someone's down, you can tell when someone's happy, you can tell when somebody is saying something that they truly believe, and you can tell when somebody's just telling you something that they want, and kids, guarantee they get that. We think that, only adults pick up on that. No, children, that's the first language they learn, right? I feel like they're, like dogs, the dog can tell when you're safe and when you're not. They're going to growl or they're going to bark, but kids, it's those instincts, it's basic human instincts. And so, yeah, if you're not living it, if you don't truly believe that you're good enough, like, your kids pick up on that emotionally, energetically, they sense those things. So.
Absolutely. And I think do you feel it's important to try to go back, almost revert back to those feelings yourself, like as an adult or as like, as the dad? Do you feel like you have to start thinking, man, I got to be more like involved with the feelings of my son as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, how can we be more like them instead of trying to make them more like us, right? I mean, I feel like as a parent, that's what we're trying to do so often, is like, how do I teach them to be like me? And it's like, well, there's a lot that we can learn from them, right? Because that's how we came. Children are a perfect example to me, is like, here's how we came. This was like this was natural for us, right? And, you think about a little kid, is like, when they want something, they're loud about it. like a baby, like they scream and they cry when they want what they want, and they don't stop, and there's no like, there's no rationale, but they ask me, my 4.5-year-old, when he wants something, he's like, Dad, this is what I want. I'm like, well, we can't do that right now. Well, this is what I want. I can give him every objection in the world, and he'll be like, I still want that. And you know what? He gets a lot more because of that. And I'm like, hey, how can we learn from the kids? How can we pick up on like the determination, like the take no for an answer, like, and also like they love and they forgive like nobody's business. Like they love you no matter what, and they will forgive you no matter what it is that you do.
Right. You can just tell, like I can tell by the way you interact, like even though we'll jump into the story and stuff with your son and all that, I can tell like how much you just desire to be like that hero in his eyes. You can just see it, man, that passion, right? And I think that I hope more dads listening can feel that, and they desire that as well, because it's a short window. It's a very short window that we can see that aspect in their eyes, like Dad is a superhero. Because they're going to grow up and be like, Dad has flaws, right?
They're going to figure us out sometime.
They're going to figure us all out. We all have our things, like you said before. Tell me about the relationship you have with your dad.
Yeah, incredible relationship with my dad. I feel like I'm speaking, from this place of like I'm still figuring it out, but the older I get and the more I interact as a dad, the more I respect and realize what my dad did for me. But my dad was one who, he would appreciate you, he would recognize you, he would give you the praise you needed. I thrived off praise, and I probably still do, of getting praise, right? But he gave that praise there, but he also didn't miss an opportunity to teach. He was always about teaching and educating and making sure that you learned and that you looked at things from a different perspective, and that you looked at the big picture, you put yourself in somebody else's shoes. It was never just like a yes man, like, oh yeah, you're right, and the other person's wrong. He really taught that. But he was also a dad that could like emotionally be there, that he said he loved you. We gave hugs as a family growing up, and there was a lot of love, there was a lot of compassion, there was a lot of empathy. There was also teaching, and then there was a lot of fun. So I had a very good relationship, very well balanced. He showed me hard work, but he also, I think, the thing my dad most did for me, that I appreciate the most, is the way that he taught me to look at situations and how to treat other people, putting yourself in their shoes and not really just judging anyone else or coming from a place of like knowing better. So yeah, I had a very, very strong upbringing, a very, very great father figure in my home.
What a great example.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So cool. So before your son was born, then leading up, did you feel a lot of pressure because of how like awesome your relationship with your dad? Did you feel a lot of pressure to be that type of father?
That's a good question. No, I just didn't think that far ahead. With me, it was, I was just excited that I got to be a dad. I was excited to be a dad. And I looked at advice and everything else, but for me, it was like, let's get this going and then let's figure this thing out. And I was just always excited. It wasn't something that necessarily scared me. Now, 9 months in and the baby's like around the corner, I'm like, oh crap, what did I get myself into? Like, I don't know if I know how to do this. I don't know what to do. I don't, but I've always loved kids, and once we had them, everything just kind of changed. I was like, I'll figure this out. We're gonna figure this out together, homie. Like, we got this. Like, this is your first time being a kid. This is my first time being a dad. Like, well, neither of us know whether we're doing good or not. So
right.
Yeah.
And there's still days like that, right?
Oh, totally. Every new phase, every new, just figuring it out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are some, just as, because I think this is so cool to learn, what are some of the fun things you just enjoy doing with your son? Like those new things you're learning from him?
Yeah. We just had a weekend together, and my wife went on a little bit of a girls trip, and so here's the thing: he's starting to get more and more of an attitude in his own like personality, right? I'm like, oh, you are so your mom right now, or oh, you are so me, and I'm so proud of her. I'm like, oh man, I gotta work on that, He shows me that stuff, but he's so determined. He wants to be in charge, right? He wants to be a leader. He wants to take the role, and so. This weekend, I really tried. Like, I presented about a bunch of different opportunities, ideas, what we could do. Number one goal on Friday was, I want my son to tell me, Dad, I'm ready to go to bed. Like, he's going to tell me he wants to go to bed. Like, that's the goal. And if I have to keep him up until 2 a.m, I'm doing it. Like, I want him to tell me, Dad, put me to bed, I'm tired. That would be mission accomplished. I told my wife that. And anyway, so I present all these different ideas to him, and he's like, let's do this. I'm like, great. And I let him take charge and just kind of decide what we did. And when we got, so he decided he wanted to go to this pool. And he knows the pool, there's a slide and a diving board that he likes. And so when we got the pool, it's like, Dad, I want to go down the slide. And it's like, cool. Instead of it being like, can we just swim for a minute? Or can we, I sometimes try and control, even within the things he likes doing, I try and control like things that I would enjoy within the thing that he likes, right? I just started to notice that, like, I don't feel like waiting in line or walking up the slide again. And I'm like, I'm literally going to let him be in charge of everything that he wants. And that was super fun for me. You know, your question, like, what do you really enjoy doing? I love letting him like lead us and be in charge and do this. And, you know, we went over the diving board and he's like, Dad, you got to jump off the diving board like I do. And so he runs the entire length of the diving board, right? And then stays running in the air. And he's like, you do it, Dad. I'll watch and see if you do it right. I'm like, hey. So like now I'm running in this public pool and doing the Running Man, you know? And he's like, I was like, how'd I do? He's like, close. You could do better, you know? Like, you know, just let him be that role. And he kind of took that role. Like I could see him talking the way we talk to him. And it was really cool. So for me, it's like, what do you want? And then kind of playing into that as much as I like playing full out. What do you want to do? How do you want to do it? When are we going to go to bed? Like you were in charge for the entire day. And that was super fun for me.
Dude, what a cool experience. Dads, take that as an opportunity. I'm going to take that as an opportunity. I think that's amazing because a lot of times, to your point, get in those situations like, how do I also get to do what I want in this situation? Mm-hmm. And that's an ego check there, man. That's a big ego check to be able to quiet that and be like, I'm here for him. Not myself right now. That's awesome. Dude, that's so cool. So tell me more about your kids, like your son's personality, dude. It sounds like he's an awesome kid.
Dude, he's a fun kid. You know, back to this weekend, like he loves people. Like he loves people, and he's not afraid to go and talk to people. And I admire that. So, and I don't ever want this to go away. But we went to the pool the next day. We went to the pool as well, and a different pool. And we were there at like 9:30 in the morning. We were the only ones with one other couple. There was an older couple. They didn't even speak English. They were speaking like Russian. And he jumps in the pool, and the lady was swimming laps, and he goes up and he goes, "Hi, I'm Nixon," and he's trying to talk, and she's not talking to him. He's like, "How long have you been here?" And they're not responding to him, right? And I'm just like, I'm not gonna step in, like whatever. And then I can see him getting disappointed. Like 3 or 4 times he tried to talk to her, and she just didn't talk. And I was like, Nixon, I don't know if she speaks English. I don't know if she understands what you're saying, you know? And I'm like, in hopes that if she does, she's gonna hear me and be like, "What are you talking about? Just because I'm speaking Russian, whatever, I don't know." And she didn't say anything, and then he literally like swam right in her path, and he's like, "How long have you been here?" And she goes, "About an hour," in a really thick accent, right? And I was like, "Yeah, dude, you know." That group left, another group came, and he goes over and just starts talking to them. And two middle-aged girls, you know, probably roommates or something, and he's just talking to them and asking them if he can show them their tricks and everything else. Like, this is his personality, man. And then it's like, he comes over and goes, "Dad, I need a snack." I was like, "Dude, I forgot to pack snacks." He's like, "Yeah, you also forgot my sunscreen." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, Mom's better at this than me, you know. You're Hawaiian, you'll be fine, right?" He's a lot lighter skinned than me, but he's like, "I want snacks." I'm like, "Cool, let's go get some snacks." He's like, "Can we come back?" I'm like, "Yeah, we'll come back." So he goes over to these 2 girls who are laying out now, and he goes, "Me and my dad are gonna go get some snacks now, but we're gonna come back, so it's okay." And they're like, "Okay." And he's like, "You guys are my best friends." Like, "Oh, thank you, that's so nice," whatever. And he's like, "Do you want me to bring you anything?" And they're like, "No, we're okay. We got our own snacks." He's like, okay, we'll be back, you know. We left, we got snacks, we come back, and those girls were gone. There's like 30 people there now, and we're walking in. He's like, "Hi, best friends," to like random girls, and they're like looking over their shoulders. He's like, he thinks it's the same girls. It's totally different, right? But literally the rest of that day, he's just meeting new people, going up, talking, you know, playing with their toys, whatever else. Like, no, he walks up, "My name's Nixon. What's your name? Do you want to be my friend?" And, you know, young, old, does not matter. That's just how he is. And that personality, like, that's the thing I absolutely love the most. I love watching that unravel. I don't ever want that to go away.
Oh man, like, what a cool kid. First and foremost, I love that. I love that he's just down for people. Do you feel because of what you did, you created that like door-to-door sales type and like obviously outgoing guy, do you feel like you fostered a lot of that in him?
It was interesting. Somebody actually messaged me when I posted one of those things on my story, and they're like, you know, "How did he learn that? Is that just from watching your example or, you know, whatever else?" And my response was, yeah, I think we've always tried to support it, that's the way that it is. And yeah, he's probably seen that's a lot how I am, right? And my wife is that way as well. But as I thought about it throughout the weekend, I was like, you know what? I don't know if that's learned behavior or if that's like basic human instinct. Like, isn't that how we are?
Sure.
Isn't that how he came? And we just continue to support that. And I think that might be the case. Like, I think we live that way, and so that encourages it and supports it. But I feel like if you think back to like little kids, they're not afraid to ask for what they want. They're not afraid to go up and talk to new kids. They're not afraid. I think that's learned behavior to not do that. I think we've learned, no, don't go interrupt. Don't interrupt somebody else's conversation. Don't talk to them, or they're strangers, or all these different things. Like, I think we've been taught those things. I don't think we were taught to, I think we were taught not to do it instead of to do it.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking on lately.
Yeah, I think that's like so interesting because I mean my boys, polar opposite, dude.
Yeah.
One's super outgoing,
Yeah.
same thing. The other one, like even we do this just for fun with him and he's just like, Dad, I'm nervous. I'm like, bro, it's you and me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like no one else is gonna hear this. Like,
Yeah.
So it's like
Was he always that way? Like when he was younger, like
he's always just been a thinker. He's just always a thinker. Like no matter what, like sits in the car. He's the dude that will sit in the car. You don't have to have a conversation with him.
Well, I love that. So again, this is still like evolving for me.
Yeah.
It was this weekend, right?
Yeah.
But that again, I only have one son, but that reminds me, like, I feel like there's certain characteristics and certain traits that we all come with, and some of those are different, right? So you might have one child that's going to be more intuitive and one who's more street smart, right? One's book smart, one's But some of that's learned, but I think some of that's also like that's their character. Is like, hey, I'm very methodical. Like, I'm going to think about all this, and then I'm going to decide whether I'm going to do it or not. And he's a lot like me. Is like, ready, fire, aim. Like, let's just go, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I do think that he kind of came that way, and I think we encouraged it.
Nice.
And then there's probably some example there, right? I might get my next kid might be like totally opposite.
Right.
My wife's not like totally opposite. She's not as much this way, but the kids are gonna come with their own ways, and we kind of just gotta find a way to support that. But yeah, that is one of the skills. That's one of the characteristics of him that I love. Watching kind of unfold.
I love that, dude. So tell me more, like, with your wife and like, do you feel your parenting is the same? Do you feel like you both are different approach with him? Because it seems like you were just saying your wife's not that same way with him. So
she's not as much like, hey, I'm just gonna go up and just talk to anyone. Like if he's out there playing with these kids, or he wanted to go scare. It was the dad that was playing with the kids, and Nixon jumped in. He's like, I'm gonna go scare this guy, and he didn't just go to scare him. Like he jumped on the guy's back. He's like, doesn't even know the kid. And for me, I'm just like, you know what? Like I wouldn't be offended if some kid did that, whatever. But my wife might be like, Nathan, don't do that. That's weird. and it probably is. But for me, I'm just like, let's just see how far this can go without me interjecting myself, right? She is very, very good at structure and educating. I feel like I could be better at educating because of structure. But for me, I'm kind of just like, I see so much of the talk so much and just like wanting to just play and do whatever else, to the point where I'm like, there doesn't need to be, like, if he wants to play a lot, like, he can just play a lot, like, and I try and just, for me, I probably could do a better job of like, hey, like, there's a time and there's a place and whatever else, but I'm like, honestly, until he's 10, like, chores are going to happen at whatever level at the age they are, but like, just play as much as you want, and as long as you can, and whatever else. Like, I'm more, so I'm just more like, I want to see where this goes, and I want to support what it is and keep the gifts in it instead of like structure. And that's more of just me. Like, I hate structure. I hate rules. I hate being told no. That means there's a limit. There's not a possibility. And so we're different in those ways, but she's really good at teaching and educating and having structure, and I'm more, let me just support where you are and try and help you like direct that in the best possible way.
So good. How do you feel like he's helping you learn more about who you are?
Yeah. Well, he's super forgiving and he's super loving, right? And so he's helping me see areas where I could be more forgiving or quick to love, right? Super non-judgmental. I mean, my kids are just like, they'll say stuff, they'll point out things about somebody, like, hey, Mom, that person's got he did this. He's like, Mom, that person has a huge butt. and it's like, you know. But he's not doing it from a judgmental place. It's just like, that's just a fact. It's just what it is,
right?
you know.
Yeah.
And so, but he teaches me that of like being very non-judgmental. But you know, about myself, you know, he moves on. He doesn't hold stuff over his own head, right? And so, like, teaching me to not hold on to stuff, not beat myself up, and so that really, it's all this around unconditional love. Like, they love you unconditionally. They love themselves unconditionally. They don't hold stuff over themselves. And I think it's probably one of the greatest things that he's teaching me about me.
Right, and I think that that's such an important thing, man, because I think a lot of people, just in life in general, there's these conditions with everything, right?
Yeah.
There doesn't have to be.
No.
You should just, especially when it comes to love, man, you should just
Yeah.
love wholeheartedly.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel the same way. My son, we have it on a little board in there with those light up boards, you know, and you can put the letters in or whatever.
Yeah.
And I asked him one day, I said, bud, because he's like my little yogi, I swear, like there's something along his life path or something.
Yeah.
He's like this like Zen master or something. Because I chat with him like, bud, what's life all about? Just I wanted to see, you know, to see what he says. He goes, Dad, it's simple. It's about living and loving. I said, what the heck? How does my 4-year-old like understand this? You know, so I put it on my board. It's living and loving, man. It's it's simple. So let's talk really quick. You have a very powerful video on like your social media channel about you and your son's relationship.
Yeah.
Like how that fosters. Can you dive into that a little bit for me?
Absolutely. So want me to just kind of go through the whole story there?
Yeah, please.
So yeah, my son he's a total character, and he loves his mom so much. And then this video here, I share this just real vulnerable, authentic, raw experience that we've had just raising him. So, you know, as a young kid, he always loved whenever my wife would change his diaper, she'd put her hair, he'd get super, you know, rambunctious, whatever, she'd put her hair on his face, and he would just like, you know, grab her hair and he'd play with it, and he loved her hair, right? And as he continued to grow and everything else, he just was infatuated with his mom. He loved her so much and had a special connection. Around, you know, 1.5, you know, later in his, you know, 1.5, he'd be at the store and he'd start pointing at things that he liked. And he started talking, you know, he'd say mom, and the thing that he started to get more and more drawn to was Barbie dolls, like princesses particularly. He loved Disneyland. We took him to Disneyland at a very young age and had season passes and went a lot. My wife loves it. I love watching them there.
Yeah.
And so we went a lot, but he just loved these princesses. And so he would point at him and call him mommy doll. And my wife thought it was so cute. We thought it was cute. On his 2nd birthday, he got his first Barbie doll, and it was this blonde Barbie doll that looked just like his mom, and he called it mommy doll. He took it to naps, he took it to everywhere he went. He took that Barbie doll with him, and it was cute. And as he continued to grow, he got super into Elsa. Like, he loves Frozen. Elsa's brave, Elsa's powerful, Elsa has ice powers, like, she's got dance moves, she's got a voice, like, he loves it all, singing it, playing it, whatever. And so his love started to grow for that. And you know, earlier on, like, there were some things that kind of, like, I was like, oh, this is weird, like, no, we're not buying him a doll. But then I'm like, oh, whatever, he's got one now, no big deal. And then he started liking stuff, and I think when he first started liking stuff, I started realizing, like, okay, he likes his mom. But then I was like, there was a side of me that was like, ugh, like, why don't we play baseball? You know, like, why don't we play catch? Why don't we get him these things? But then, you know, people would say, like, oh, my son did that too. That's totally fine. That's totally normal, whatever. I was like, okay, cool. But it just grew and grew and grew. And, you know, about a year later, he's got dozens of dolls. We watched, you know, he loves all the princess movies. He's got dress ups. Now he's got wigs, and he loves painting his nails like his mom. She goes to get her nails done, he wants his nails done. He wants to put makeup on, and so it's just getting to this point where it's like, man, this is all he cares about. Like, he did not want anything to do with anything that was not princess. And I started to notice inside, like, okay, this is a problem. And conversations started coming up between my wife and I, and I'm like, this is like, we can't do this. She's like, this is what he loves. This is what he wants. Like, she had this big picture from day one. Like, this is what he loves. This is what he wants. Like, it's fine. I'm like, well, what if I was at home, stay-at-home dad, and I was taking care of him, like, and I was playing with him, he'd be into the things that I'm into, right? And instead of this, and she's like, I disagree. I don't think that's the case. Like, you play with him a ton, whatever else. This is just what he loves. I'm like, okay. But as time goes on, I start blaming her. I'm like, look, what if he's gay? You know, like what if he thinks he's a girl? What if he wants to be a girl? Like, what if we are the cause of that? And it's kind of an immature, like, you know, that you can cause somebody to be gay or cause somebody to like desire this, but you know, not knowing, again, first time being a parent, I'm like, what if that's the case? And I start planting these thoughts into my wife's head, and I start blaming her. Really, I don't enjoy sharing that, but like, I blamed her, like, you're causing this, like, you're causing this problem. You're buying this, we need to stop. And she stood by it, but and defended it. But I think over time, I kind of broke her down a little bit of like, she started to question, like, did I? You know, like, is this? I don't know if it was at a deep level, but I think that was starting to cause those feelings for her. And we had rules, like, you can't wear the dresses outside the house. You know, you can take your dolls, whatever else, but you can't wear a dress outside your house. But every time we went to friends' houses, he'd love going to hang out with the friends that had dresses or had sisters that had dresses. And one day in particular, like, we had a fight trying to take the dress off before he left the home. When I went to go pick him up from his friend's house that day, he was dressed from head to toe. He had slippers on, he had a dress on, he had wig, makeup, dolls in his hands. And I'm like, it's time to go. We got to take this stuff away. And he threw an absolute tantrum, like, to take that stuff off and to take it away. And I was embarrassed. Like, the mom was watching, and I was like, man, what do these parents, started thinking, like, what do these parents think about me as a parent? Like, what do they think about my son? What if these kids start making fun of my son? You know, and I started getting really worried about this. And that night, I just lost it. I went in, tucked him into bed, and as soon as he was in bed, I went around the house and I gathered up everything. All of his dolls, all of his dresses, all of his wigs, and I threw it all away. And just told my wife, I said, this is enough. Enough is enough. This is not right. Like, he's gonna start playing with boys and stuff. And you know, just like when he took his binky away, like, he'll be fine in a couple days, you know. Let's go cold turkey. And I really just was not looking at what was going on. I did not realize everything that was going on within myself at the time, but a couple weeks later, I had been noticing, like, man, he is energetically, he's treating me differently. Like, he is telling me no, go away, being very aggressive with me. You know, he'd clench up his fists and he'd like tighten up and he'd get really aggressive. I'm like, this is not, something's going on. I started to think, is this because of what I did? Like, because of the stuff I took away? You know, does he feel like, you know, I don't like him, or I don't support him, or whatever else? Like, what is going on? So I flew to another state, and I met with a mentor of mine, and I was sharing with him about what had happened and what I had done, and how my son was treating me, and I thought that might be the case, and the reason why. And this mentor simply just looked me in the eyes and said, Jeremy, what are you afraid of? I'm like, what do you mean? You know, I was trying to talk away. I said, what do you mean? I thought we were going a different way here. Like, he's going to just give me some advice, I was going to figure it out, you know? He's like, what are you afraid of? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, what are you afraid of? I'm like, I'm afraid my son's going to get made fun of. And he's like, okay, what else? I was like, I'm afraid that what other people think of me as a parent. And he's like, cool, what else? I'm like, I'm afraid my son might want to be a girl. He's like, okay, what else? I'm like, I'm afraid my son might think he's a girl. What else? Well, I'm afraid that he might be gay. Or I'm afraid that we've caused him to be gay. Or that he's gonna want to be a girl. And he's like, wow, okay. And he goes, what if all that's true? I take a deep breath and I'm like, man, that'd be really, really hard. That'd be really, really hard. He goes, yeah, I'm sure. He goes, would you still love him? I was like, absolutely. Absolutely, I'd still love him. He goes, well, don't you think it'd be important for you to show him that now more than ever? Because if he is any of those things, don't you think that's gonna be a harder life or a harder path? I'm like, yeah, and he shared with me some of the stats about what it's like to live a day in that life, and the suicide rate and the repercussions, and what it all stems from is this lack of acceptance, this lack of like knowing that you're loved by the people that should absolutely love you no matter what. And he, you know, he went through all that with me, and he just said, what do you want most? What do you want most? And I just said, I want my son to know that I love him. I want him to know that I accept him. I want him to know that I'm there for him. That I've got his back, no matter what. And he goes, awesome. I left that meeting, I called my wife that night and I said, hey, things are gonna change. You support me? She's like, absolutely. She told her a little bit about it, got super emotional, and I came home, I flew home the next day, I got in my truck, I drove home, picked up my son, took him to the store. Dad, where are we going? You'll see. We get there and we picked out the most beautiful Elsa dress we could find. And he's like, really, Dad? Like, really? Like, you're gonna let me? And that's when I knew, like, it hit me, like, wow. Yeah, that was where that energy was coming from. Like, you're really gonna let me have the thing that I want? And I'm like, yeah. He hugged and kissed me so much that day. And it's just been different since, like, you know, I got that, and I've noticed, like, he was very smart, very intuitive. He would say, you know, people would ask him, like, what's your favorite color? He's like, purple. He's like, I'm a boy, but my favorite color is purple. Boys can like purple too. And if, you know, he sat on Santa's lap, and Santa's like, what do you want for Christmas? And he's like, I want an Elsa doll. And Santa goes, no, you don't want that. You want a car. You don't want a doll. And he looks at Santa like, and my heart's just breaking over here. And Santa looks at us, and I'm like, yeah, you mother effer, he wants a doll. Like, I'm gonna knock you out, bro.
Why do I beat
like,
Santa up right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna beat up Santa. And you know, just watching him, and you just see his face just deflate like Santa. You know, you could just see it. I started to now see, like, this is what he loves, and he's trying to get people to just say, like, yeah, that's good, that's cool, that's not cool, that's like cool, that's awesome, I love that. You know, he'd dress up, or, you know, he's a great looking kid. He's my kid, and so I'm biased. I'm like, he's a very good looking kid, a pretty boy, you know. But he, you know, I tell him, like, hey, you're handsome. He's like, no, I'm not handsome. I'm beautiful. I'm like, you are beautiful. You are a beautiful boy, and it's okay to say that. Like, it's okay to be that. And so yeah, we've just more and more now. Like, I did not realize the grip fear had on me. It was all fear. I was focused on what I did not want. I was focused on what I didn't want. And when you're focused on what you don't want, you can't even see what you want. Like, you can't even see what it is you want, because all you see is what you don't want. And it's just a simple paradigm shift of, like, well, I don't want this to what's the opposite of that? Like, I want this. Like, I want my son to know I love him. I want my son to be accepted. I want, you know, I want my son to play sports. So cool, that's okay. And, like, I want my son to do what he wants most, not what I want. And so, like, when I started to realize that, I started to see all the ways that I could focus on what I wanted. And so it led to, like, you know, I got online, and it took a lot of searching, so I'm not a small dude, but I found an Elsa dress that fits a 6'3", 210-pound guy. I got a wig, you know, and I surprised him just on a regular Tuesday. He was playing with his friend, and I just said, you know, Nixon, look, and he turned around, and I was dressed as Elsa, and he ran up and he gave me the biggest hug. He's like, my dad's Elsa. And, you know, before that, he would always, when we played games, he'd always be the girls, and he'd make me be one of the boys. I'm like, why can't I be a girl? He's like, cause you're a boy. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, I know I'm a boy too, but I want to be the girls, whatever else. And I'm like, oh, like, why can't I play with you? You know, he felt the separation. So I'm like, all right, well, let me get closer and showing you that I'm committed to being whatever role you want me to play. And I dressed up as Elsa for his, you know, birthday party. He wanted an Elsa birthday party for Halloween. You know, we went to the new movie Elsa movie together, and just kind of showed him, like, dude, I'm in this with you, and our relationship's just totally different. Like, our energy, our relationship, the acceptance, like, and that it's changed my life. It's brought so much to the forefront, and it's also brought a lot of discussion. There's a lot of people that are like, they disagree with it, or they, you know, their insecurities, their fears, they're coming up, and luckily I'm maybe one step ahead of those people, because I felt them and I experienced them and I learned from them, and so I've been able to really help people kind of dissect that for themselves. And I've had a lot of really, really deep conversations with strangers and with close family members about it.
Dude, my goodness, people. Dude, I was tearing up listening to that, dude. Like, it's just, wow. It's hard to put into words. I wish everybody could sit in this moment with us and feel what you just shared. So thankful.
Yeah.
It's like the host of this show, and I'm so thankful that you could share that with a lot of these dads that are listening, because I think a lot of dads need to hear that right now. Yeah. It's not our job to dictate their reality, who they are. Mm-hmm. We gotta support, we gotta love, we gotta try to come down and be with them, or walk alongside with them.
Yeah.
For you to do that took so much courage, man. And, like, when you said you came back and picked him up and you took him and got the most beautiful dress, bro, I was done. I was like,
I know, I saw the tears coming. Oh crap, how am I gonna keep this together?
Dude, because for you to understand that, man, like for you as a father with your own like agenda and your own things of what you believed like was going to be this relationship you were going to have with your son, to be able to put all that on the back burner and just see the situation for what it is and to take action to be in that situation takes so much, man.
You know, it's it. I appreciate that and I respect that, and like it really, you know, it's the simple stuff that's the hard stuff, I guess. Like it really is a pretty simple thing, right? You ask any dad, like, do you love your kid? Like, without a doubt, like it's an easy answer, right? Now, what's hard is facing fears, becoming aware of fears. Luckily, having great mentors and everything else, but it's like it's hard to admit when you're wrong and to pivot and those things. But it's like it's hard. It's a hard act to do, but it's really not when like you get connected to what you want most. Because look, any dad, they'd do anything in this world for their kid. They'd kill a guy, they'd take a bullet, they'd do whatever. And so it's like, why wouldn't you wear a dress, or why wouldn't you allow him to do that?
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. A lot of people have misinterpreted or taken this in different ways, and people kind of jump on me from sharing this. It's like, you don't know that means that. And I'm like, you're right, I don't know. I don't know. Like my son might be straight, he might want to be a boy, he might just see courage and whatever else in girls. He just may really enjoy that aspect of life, and he's very in touch with the feminine side. That is totally okay. It does not mean any of the things that I thought it meant, but I had to address it as if like, if that is the case, that doesn't change anything, right? So like before it even, we won't know. We might not know for a little while, but it's like, it does not matter.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. And I say it's simple when I know that it's hard, but it's like, it's a simple act. It's like, really just ask, like, what do you want most? Like, what do you really want? And if love is the most important thing, it's like, is there anything that's standing in the way of love being portrayed most? And if you can check in there and say, yeah, it's like, oh, my desire for him to play baseball because I played baseball, or my desire for him to, you know, like these things or do these things. It's like, well, then that thing can go, right? It's really simple. Just like put it through that filter. It's like, well, if he doesn't feel loved, you know, then this goes out. Like, not a hard thing, you know.
Dude, that's so awesome. Put it through the filter.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Seriously, dude. Seriously, thank you so much for sharing this. Like, that's impacted me a ton.
Yeah.
You know, my son, same thing. We were looking at like those self-drive, you know, the little electric cars that they're in. You know, we go through. My one's like, I want that one. It looked like a tank. My other one's like, I want that one. It was the Barbie car. And initially, at first, you're like, bro, you can't get the Barbie car, you know. But it's like, who the hell cares? Like, who cares? Who cares? Like, if love is that filter, then are you trying to block it, or are you allowing it to flow through, right? Whatever form.
Yeah.
So
And is it the kid or is it you, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's the mirror,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's back to that thing we started with. It's just the mirror. Like,
Yeah.
am I good enough? Like as a parent, do I believe in my parenting enough? Do I believe in me as a person enough? Do I believe in my masculinity enough? Because I think this strokes a lot of the masculine, like our false perception of what it means to be a masculine man, right? It's okay for a girl to go play soccer. It's okay for a girl to go play baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, she can be in fighting. She can be in the workforce. I mean, there's this equality and this understanding and acceptance of all these things for women, but for men, why is it still so hard with purple? Like, I love purple. I think purple's a great color, right? I mean, why is it like, because of this false belief of what masculine means? It means you can't cry.
Yeah.
Well, we both just broke that.
Absolutely.
So here we go, we're out on that. You know, like, you can't like, you know, you can't be emotional. You can't share emotions. You can't like girl things. You can't, and it's like, I mean, that's what needs to change there. And that's where it's like, if I'm good enough with me, back to the start, am I good enough? Do I believe that I'm good enough? Is my son teaching me like the areas where I maybe feel like I'm not good enough? And I had to go through all that, face those fears of like, no, I'm a good enough parent. I love myself enough. I can take whatever it is that other people think about me because I'm good enough. You know, I'm whole. I'm not lacking. You know, I've got more than enough to give. And so when you come from that place, now the kid gets the benefit, and you're going to be a lot happier, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I feel like there's a lot here. I feel like there's a lot we could dive into with it. There's a lot energetically. There's a lot when it comes to masculinity. There's a lot of fears, but really, yeah. Wherever you want to go,
No, it's so good, man. Really quick before we change, because I want to respect your time for coming out and everything today too. Usually I ask the question at the end, like, what advice would you give? But I feel like right now it's such a great time like, what advice do you have that you haven't already shared with a dad that's going through a similar situation?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I look at where maybe it is that maybe it's the similar thing. Maybe it's dolls, maybe it's princesses, maybe it's something totally different than that. But, what I look at is like, as a parent, we don't have the playbook, and you kind of got to try things and allow yourself to fail and everything else and check in, because I don't have the right answers for every person in their situation, but like, make a decision based off of what it is that you want most, which we talked on, and just start moving in that direction, and then evaluate, like, is that working for me or is that not working? It's not about being right or wrong. Like, you're not right or wrong. You're not the right parent or the wrong parent. The other parent's not doing it right and you're doing it wrong. It's like, is it working or is it not working? And working is different for everyone. Is that working for you? Is that working for your relationship? Is that working for your child? But I would advise, take those steps to move and get more clarity on that from a place of, this is what I want absolutely most, as a parent. So often I feel what stops you from doing that is everybody else. And it really is a lesson for you as a parent, is like, am I a people pleaser? Like, do I worry more about what other people think than what I think? Do I care more about what other people want than what I want? You gotta let that stuff out, because as a parent, you're gonna get advice and opinions whether you want them or not from everybody. And so make those decisions based on like what it is that you want most, and don't let other people hinder you from that. And again, don't be afraid. Like, it's okay to feel fear, but still continue to move forward with that, because I can tell you on the other side of it, it feels so much better. Like, it feels so much better to just know that I'm willing to go wherever I need to in order to have this kind of experience that I want and the relationship that I want with my child.
Absolutely. I feel like a big part, if we can hit on this a little bit, is you said you had your mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to bounce that off. How important is that individual for you to have in your life?
Yeah. Sorry, getting my dry mouth.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, I mean, it means everything, right? Knowing that you have people that can create, I'm not gonna say I didn't always have that. I feel like I've always had this, but I haven't always taken advantage of the fact that there's relationships, and sometimes it is the spouse, sometimes it's outside of that. Sometimes you gotta go to somebody else who's has no skin in the game, right? Unattached, but taking advantage of somebody who can create a safe space for you to really just be vulnerable, to just share whatever it is. Like when he hit me with, what are you afraid of? I'm like, oh no, we're not gonna talk about fears right now, right? I'm scared of spiders. No, I don't know. Like, I don't want to die. And he's like, no, what are you afraid of here? And I'm like, I don't want to. And it's a great opportunity to have. So yes, go to somebody, have relationships, have mentors, have family members or whoever it is that you can go to, that you can that will challenge you, not just tell you what you want to hear, that will give you an unbiased opinion, even if they have an opinion. I didn't know what his opinion was on this. I just knew that he was willing to like help me understand it for myself, right? Yeah. He could have very well, it would have been a totally different experience if it was somebody who had set ideas as to how you should do this, and they told me, here's what you do, instead of just asking me questions to really find out what was true for me. That's what he did. Yeah. And so yeah, I think that's absolutely crucial in life. And the mentors and friends and family and relationships that I have that cause me and force me to level up by just not telling me what I want to hear and also asking me the hard questions, but creating a safe space for me to share it and not be judged. So
awesome.
Everyone needs that in their life for sure.
Absolutely. I like to do this. It's kind of fun. It's this little deck. So my wife gave this to me for Christmas. Like, literally probably one of like the least, I always say this, least expensive things, but one of the most impactful gifts. Because I think relationships and building it is all about getting past like surface level. Yeah. Sounds like your son will just jump in and do it,
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's really important for us to like not be afraid to really find out things about people that are past like, what's your favorite sports team, or you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like the go-to questions. Yeah. So this is kind of fun. It's just like random, super random. Even though last two guests, no joke, have pulled the same card. I don't know how. Out of like 52 cards or whatever, it's like a standard deck. But I'm gonna let you just take whatever card out of there you want.
All right.
We'll jump in, Jeremy.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know where to go. Oh, great. So What can you do that you could not do a year ago? Oh man, what can I do that I could not do a year ago? All right, so I gotta go with the first thing that pops in my head. I'm like, my mind's going all over the place. Which we're talking about fathers here, so I gotta stick with that as a father. Well, look, like I couldn't talk about this a year ago.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, this experience took place actually about a year ago with my mentor. And it's taken this long for me to actually share it. I mean, some people have seen me living it, like just showing up like I'm living it, right? When the door opened, garage door for us to walk out on Halloween, my wife dressed as Elsa, me dressed as Elsa, and my son dressed as Elsa. It wasn't until the door opened and we walked out that I was like, oh wait, this is going to be interesting. Like this is going to cause certain feelings and whatever else with people. And that was Halloween last year. It was like, man, the responses we got back from some men was like, oh, good for you. Other men you could tell were like, I totally disagree with you, and like you're making me uncomfortable, and like what are you doing, you know? But a year ago, I really struggled to just come out and talk about it because one, I was kind of embarrassed about the way that I handled it. I was committed to what it was that I did, but I was embarrassed about the way I had started by handling it. And it wasn't until it was actually a couple of months ago. It was about a month and a half ago that I was like, COVID hit, and I noticed how everybody was acting, and everyone was focused on what they didn't want. Nobody wants to go back to work. Nobody wants to open their business back up because then someone's going to sue me, or I don't want to do this. I mean, all these things. And I'm looking at it going, man, we're the greatest country in the world, and if we want something, we'll find a way to make it happen. But our world's not focused on what we want right now. We're focused on what we don't want. We don't want to be racist. We don't want to be this. We don't want to be that. And so all that came up, and I was like, I've got to share my story. And it scared me, but I was like, I gotta be able to tell it exactly how. Like, I gotta tell the truth about this. Like I can't paint this, make it look good, and whatever else. Like I gotta tell like the good, the bad, the ugly, and there's gonna be people that are gonna judge it. There's gonna be people that are gonna be opposed to it. You know, it's gonna be something I'm gonna have to talk about more now because of it. And that was something that I couldn't do a year ago. You know, and then I decided, you know, circumstances changed, and I decided this is something that I need to do because it's impacted me, it's changed me, and it's gotta be able to change other people.
So would you say what's the biggest gift that you've received with being that vulnerable?
Dude, there's so many gifts that come with being vulnerable, right? You talk about like anchoring in and accepting yourself even more. You know, it's like when you're vulnerable and you like, there's this fear of like, oh, people are going to go away, or I'm going to be alone in this, or I'm going to be whatever. And what you find is like, you get so much more positive feedback than you do negative. You know, I mean, people are like, this has changed my life. I need to hear this. I'm going through this. I'm struggling with this. Like, thank you for just sharing this. I'm going to hug my kids tighter today.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to love, and it fills me up to know that like something that was so hard for me, that by just sharing it, like I didn't have to do anything special. I just shared what I went through. It was able to change the course of somebody else's life as a father and as a child, and that to me is an incredible gift.
Dude, keep sharing that gift, brother. Seriously.
Thank you.
So awesome. So many lessons, dads. Holy crap. You're going to have to listen to this one twice. I'm just going to tell you that much. Because there's so much about just being present, being loving, being accepting, like you just said, like being vulnerable. Like, what amazing gifts come from just being vulnerable. And you don't have to be what society tells you have to be.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think masculine is what we thought it was.
No.
I mean, it's not today, and it's not going to serve today. Like, the most masculine man is the one who can come up and tell you the truth, good, bad, or ugly.
Yes.
They can be emotional, right, but still stay in their power, right? I feel like there's masculinity is changing by the definition I think that we've known it as. It's much more masculine, much more powerful and manly to talk about and stand up for things that, you know, maybe traditionally weren't so masculine.
Dude, I love that, brother. Seriously, thank you so much for everything today, for all these stories, being willing to come on, share with
Absolutely.
these dads. It's all about changing that, right? Changing that landscape, that there is not this traditional dad anymore. You know?
Yeah.
We have to be the dads our kids need us to be.
Mhm.
And that's it, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? right?
Yeah.
But we can lean on each other too, and start doing what moms have been doing for years, chatting about stuff that actually happens at home, right?
Yeah.
It's like dads won't do that. Dads
That's
won't be
a good
like,
point.
they won't just sit around and be like, dude, my kid's being in a pill, like just doing this, that, and this. Like, have your kids done that? Dads won't do that because then it's like, oh, I'm weak.
Yeah.
If I do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like,
Absolutely. No, it's different, right? We don't talk about it. When you said that, I'm like, oh, it's true. Like, how often do we talk about X, Y, or Z? And maybe we'll talk about things that the kids are doing, but we're not going to talk about the areas where we're falling short as a dad, and like where we could be better, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm working from home, and that's like that's not normal for me. I'm super ADHD, so it's hard for me to focus. Like if I hear something in the background, like I'm distracted, squirrel. You know? And my son knows, like when Dad's in his office, like you don't go and interrupt Dad. And if you need a hug, you can come in anytime you want and you can get a hug. Then you gotta go. But like you can't come in and just Dad's busy, right?
Yes.
But like, how can I be better from working from home when my son's like, oh, you're going to work, you're always working, whatever. I feel guilty, right?
Sure,
how do I not stay guilty? You know, like how can
yeah.
we talk about this stuff more? And I love what you're doing here with the Dadhood, you know, podcast and sharing experiences and talking about it and opening the door. I feel like there's a community that's evolving. I'm sure you're taking this in different directions, but getting fathers together and talking about these different things, supporting each other. As you asked earlier, like how could somebody deal with this if they're going through it? Like, also they can reach out to me. Like, I'll tell you what, I will never not talk about this with somebody who's going through it, because I promise you I can. And if you're on the fence, if you want to challenge me, like I welcome it, right?
Yes.
Because especially the opposing opinion, because I think there's some things I can help you see that I've seen that maybe we didn't touch on today. Yeah, the goal again is what you're doing, and I love is just trying to help dads be better dads.
Absolutely, my man. Any parting words of just encouragement for just dads in general that are, I mean, our society right now it's hard to turn into social, turn into, you know, traditional media, any of that, and not feel overwhelmed and we're scared right now.
Yeah.
Right? Minus the fact that, like you had hit, that we are such a powerful nation. We'll get through this if we start looking for the solution rather than the blame.
Mm-hmm.
What other advice do you just have for dads that are just like trying to maybe bear through this right now?
Yeah. So I look at everything that we're going on right now, and fear is what drives. You know, if somebody did a survey on their Instagram the other day and was like, you know, what do you feel the greatest problem is? And it was crazy to see the responses. Like, there's a lot of problems going on in the world today, and then we all have our own individual problems and our own family problems and our own community. And so there's a lot of those problems, and I feel like fear was the one that I'm like, that is the root of all of these different things. So what can we do to not be in fear? And I feel like in order to not be afraid, you know, it's having this faith, it's having this confidence, it's having this whatever, and that comes from looking forward. But what I would say is like, take a step. Like, it's been my theory and my model throughout my entire life in business, as a leader, and achievement, and as a dad, and it's what I try and do is like, what's the highest good that you can see right now? What's the highest possibility you can see for what you want or what you want to create? And if you don't know what that is, like, then it in and of itself is, I want to know what that is that I want. Like, focus on that and take a step, like right now, today. Like, stop listening to this when you're done with this and go and take one step. Whether that's get online and Google something, whether that's send a message to somebody, whether it's ask for help, whether it's, you know, walk out the door and start heading east. I don't care. Take a step.
Yes.
Like, that's my advice. Like, action, and you know, action leads to more and more action. You catch momentum, and if it's as a dad and whatever, it's like, okay, I've screwed up as a dad, and I've learned that here, you know, or I want my kids to not be so afraid or whatever else. Like, well, then get off this podcast, go over and take a step. What is that? Go appreciate your child for what they've done. Go give them a hug. Go just take a step, and what will happen is you'll start to see more and more steps that you can take. And before you know it, you're way further down the road than you were today. So just take a step.
Take a step, my friends. I love that, Jeremy. If someone wants to get a hold of you, like, what's the best way?
You can find me on social media. If you type my name into Google, I'm coming up right now because of, you know, some news and some stuff that I've done lately. But yeah, Jeremy Neves. That's my handle for Facebook and Instagram. Jeremy Neves _ yeah, Facebook, Instagram. Best ways to get a hold of me.
My friend, thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming out, dude.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.